check tonight, so there is a ambient microphone, so any whispers will probably be picked up, so forewarning you all if you don't want to be bashed on Facebook or wherever from these recordings. So, none of us have heard from Todd, so we'll give him another minute or two and then we'll get started.
I'm in the worst spot for that.
Buttons behind me.
I can't say anything.
Kind of like a
Yeah, so I just handed it off. Yeah, you know, it's like. I was like, yeah.
Hold on.
Jody, like, as competition, and I know it's hard because it's like, it's so conference. Yeah, for me, sound like the same.
There he is, there we go. All right, everybody, we're going to get started here. Again, reminder for some that came in late, we have like a live mic all night, so keep side conversations. It's in the laptop, and our tech team told us that it works really well. So, all right, so we're going to start this meeting. I got 6:05. Please stand for pledge. I pledge
allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right, go ahead and call attendance.
All right, Dr. Beckman Pettit.
Here.
Dr. Hill.
Here.
Mr. Haas.
Here.
Mrs. Lundberg. Here. Mrs. Pascal. Here. Ms. Shipman. Here. And Mr. Smith.
Here. Just making sure I'm not missing any other public comments. Okay. We'll start with board member comments. Open it up to the floor.
I was hoping that is Crystal Copeland, I don't see her here. I just wanted to comment on her letter to the board was encouraging us to get a second SRO. And I want to tell Crystal that I agree with her, that Bree is an amazing SRO. And I'm so glad she's at our school district. I'm so thankful for Chief Johnson to give one of his best officers to SRO work with our school district. I just think that her advocacy, local advocacy, was misplaced, and that maybe she should send her signatures and her request for the second SRO to the city. And why do I say that? Because Bree is first a law enforcement officer, and she operates within our school district. We supplement for her salary and benefits, but they are the main providers of that. Personally, I don't support a second SRO, mostly because our executives, our principals in all of our schools feel that this is the appropriate number of SROs for our community. We also have to remember that we have Montessori soon to be in one building, and we also have like Sunshine Inn as well. So she has a lot of work beyond our school district. And the one thing I wanted to publicly volunteer that Crystal wants to work, working with Detective Martellero, there's a $740 million pot of money in the state for law enforcement, interesting things like SROs to help with the law enforcement challenges. They at the Salida school, the Salida Police Department has not accessed that yet, but I'm gonna volunteer with Crystal and Martellero to be on that grant writing team as a reviewer, which is kind of what I do professionally. This is a gritty school district that goes after a lot of grants, and it has helped a lot, and I want to help them with that. Thank you. Can you hear me with the ambient mic?
Got a thumbs up from Josh.
Okay, thanks, Josh.
So far, so good.
All right, I got a couple things. One, I would tag along to what Jody just talked about, acknowledging that written message and just kind of general statement that my tenure on the board, this is probably the best relationship we've had with their SRO program. So doing good things there. So appreciate what we've done with the police and Bree and all the good things there. So one other piece, I know I've read in the paper and looked at the BD school board and things of that nature, as well as the hospital with kind of the immigrant status and collecting the data and all those good things. Just want to say thanks to David and admin, Jesse and Michelle and Corey and really our frontline secretaries for just like doing the work. We're doing the work and making sure we take care of that community, as well as I think the second reading of that policy that CASB sent out to kind of update school laws are on our agenda for tonight. Kind of those relations with state and federal officers. So, I think this board has come out and basically said we're not going to make a big public statement, but we're just doing the work. So appreciate you guys' efforts in getting that done. And then lastly, and I don't think this is going to change anything for this year, but Aaron and I have talked a little bit about this, but we're talking about a big activities plan and an overhaul and talking about different things and like gate for events and consistency, and it's very inconsistent when you go to like various games and when they're open, when they're not, charging when they're not, different things like that. And then also like really would like to look into why we're charging students. I think the $4 or whatever the activity pass to encourage our students to attend these things. I don't think it's inhibiting them. I've actually seen great attendance at all the events, but would love to find a way to absorb that cost and make sure that we ask or help facilitate students participating in activities, events, all those types of things by basically saying you can come for free. So I know playoffs and even that I would love to. I know if they go away, which changes things, but definitely want to look into that for a future year. So other than that, hearing nothing else, we're gonna move forward. Acknowledge the written message already. Thank you, Crystal. And I have one public comment. John Fritz.
Thank you. I don't know if there's a public mic somewhere. Is it just?
It's right behind you, so have
Okay.
I'm John Fritz, and I represent Ice Rink for Chaffey County. And I'm sure you've heard probably a little bit of us over the last 15 years working to get an ice rink in this community and trying to bring ice hockey and ice skating. Probably a lot of you know that we own a whole ice rink and have been looking for a location. We also have a very temporary rink, like you've maybe seen at a ski resort or a town plaza. And we think that a temporary ice rink out at the Holman Park area, Holman Avenue, the soccer fields, would be an awesome asset to our community. Ice Rink for Chaffey County owns all the equipment and proposes to fully run an ice rink for the benefit of our students and our community members. Excuse me, but we don't have any sort of official agreement with anybody, and this is sort of just our coming out to say we would love to work with the school board and provide that for the community completely free of charge. And it'd be pretty great to have another winter activity for our kids. And then over time, develop ice skating, figure skating, ice hockey, things of that nature. Also, if you're aware of what's going on at soccer fields, they would like to have a large pavilion out there. I also coach soccer, and we have to cancel practice constantly with lightning and threat of lightning. We have nowhere safe for the kids to go. And so a large pavilion that could be a safe haven in summer and a skating rink in the winter could be an awesome thing to provide our community. So just wanted to put that out there. Thank you.
Thank you. Does it require power or is it just an ambient?
Yes, the totally temporary thing does require 300 amps of power. Yep, and then just hose water or any sort of spigot. It's a very you've probably seen these skating rinks that are just like kind of roll them out and then start flooding.
And with when you say no cost to the district, that includes insurance and maintenance and all those good things.
We got it. Yep,
And then could the district use the rink for
Absolutely.
any activities that they
Getting
might
kids out there. I mean, I think there's probably some finer details to work out, but
right.
the idea is we carry insurance. We've got all that that we already carry when we rent the lake up at Chalk Lake with Forest Service and have several MOUs that we've had in the past. So yeah, thank you.
Thanks, Sean. All right, looking to get a motion to approve the agenda with these following changes. Remove approved RFPs as details are still in process. Expect to projects. Move action item 5B, approve 26-27 academic calendar to discussion, and add action item 5C, approve statement of support for CMC ballot initiative 7C.
Was that a motion, Jody?
So, but I was just
Okay.
support and support.
I'll
I'm
second.
trying to. And yeah.
And I got maybe for seconds.
Questions, clarifiers? Ready to vote?
All right, Dr. Breckenridge-Pettit.
Aye.
Dr. Hill.
Aye.
Mr. Hawes.
Aye.
Mrs. Lombard.
Aye.
Mrs. Haskell. Aye. Ms. Sherman. And Mr. Smith.
Okay, guest reports, we have none, but we do have Teresa here somewhere for a detailed report on SPCC. Turn it over to you.
Okay, I'm kind of adjusting with the change in technology. I expected to have my computer in front of me, but have my right hand man here.
You tell me when.
Okay, great. I'm Teresa Gilson. I'm the principal at the Salida Early Childhood Center and oversee all of our birth to 5 programming for the district. I took a little different spin. I feel like a lot of these presentations have been sharing what we're doing at the Early Childhood Center, why we do it, and it feels good to be in a place where I think the board has a foundational understanding of what we're up to over at the Early Childhood Center. I did include this kind of one-page informational sheet. I have a couple extra copies too for anyone in the audience that might be interested. This just sort of outlines our programming and then a couple of talking points about why early childhood is so crucial, not only for school and academic success in the K-12 arena, but also in terms of like from a business sense and crime prevention, kind of all of those impacts. So I included that, but I wanted to have our time together tonight be a little bit more focused on some of the changes that we've made, some of the things we're doing in terms of our programming, curriculum, those kinds of things. And just kind of what changes we're making in to support our youngest learners. So our funding is so complex and it's different from K-12 education. Our population is different. So this is just a kind of a brief summary of our funding. And what we do is we layer funding, we combine funding sources to provide full day services for our students. We have 56 Head Start slots and 56 early Head Start slots, so 112 children. Head Start is dedicated to serving our community's most vulnerable. And so that's roughly, between that and our special education population, that's roughly about 80% of our population. So this correlates to, I was thinking back to David's presentation on overall how the district did last year. So these are our kids that when we hone in on how did our free and reduced kids do, on this 80%, that's those free kids. And then we have UPK, which prioritizes 4-year-olds. That's our state funding. We have staff tuition based. So that's a reduced rate of tuition to support our school district workforce. And then special education for any child over 3 to 5, we provide special education services. I know Jody had a couple of questions about, we are currently, about staff, specifically that population. We're currently serving 29 staff children. And not all of those, it's important to note, not all of those are tuition based. Some of our support staff qualify for other funding sources, or if their child is 4. So like little Beckett service, yeah, he's currently partially funded as a universal preschool type child. Did that hit your question about staff tuition? So the only piece here where we don't, so we can layer like Head Start, UPK funding, those kinds of things, but a child that's Head Start or early Head Start funded has to be entirely funded. We can't do Head Start community-based tuition, so that's a little bit of a shift. And UPK has brought in a few community-based. So maybe they're a 4-year-old whose family doesn't Head Start qualify, and so they can, they're private paying the market rate. So we did a comparison with other preschools in our program, and they're paying the market rate for that second half of the day. So under UPK, we shifted a little bit, but super complex.
What's market rate right now?
So they are paying $500 a month, roughly $1,000 a month. Yeah. Okay.
And your staff pay how much?
They pay $200 for a half day, $400 for a full day in our toddler program. Yeah. So I was just again kind of getting back to some of those things I wanted to share with you, some changes we've made. I stepped into my role in 2023. And we were facing some interesting challenges in 2023 when I reflect on it. We were short-staffed across our programming. It felt like we constantly had postings. I was constantly trying to recruit people. Will helped a lot with those efforts. We were down an early childhood special education teacher. So again, we have to take any child that has an IEP. And we were down a special ed teacher for about 14 months. We were finding inconsistent classroom practices. So various curriculums kind of pieced together, a focus on compliance and adult-directed instruction. At the same time, we had probably our highest risk 3-year-olds. These were 2019, 2020 babies. I knew this experience well. I had a baby in 2020, and I was on maternity leave. I remember Alona, our previous director, called me and she said, "We're shutting down." And I was like for the week. And so all of a sudden I was homeschooling 2 first graders. I had a newborn at home. I was finishing 2 of my classes for my principal's license. And in the meantime, what happened was my husband's business went through the roof because he was in construction. Everybody realized they could come to Salida and work remotely. And so I had like friends dropping off casseroles, nobody to help me. So we just talk about that because it was like what happened to our population of young children is that essentially instead of 80% of our population coming through with some level of trauma, almost every child was coming through with some trauma, right? They were just raised, their early experiences were different than we'd ever seen. Our highest percentage of special ed kiddos as well in that class. And we were just seeing increasing negative behavior, staff frustration, and burnout. Teachers were done, they were over it. Let's see here. So our goal to address this, it was kind of like, we can't add more people, there's no other resources to add programming. So I was like, we have to shift what we're doing. We have to shift how we're approaching this. And so we started to focus on conscious discipline and play-based learning. The idea was to get back to how do all young children learn best, and how do we simplify what our teachers are doing, create fidelity across classrooms. And our hope was to decrease negative behavior and increase staff retention. So conscious discipline, if you've heard anything about this, conscious discipline is it's a comprehensive, it's a big multidisciplinary social emotional curriculum. I'll probably spend the rest of my career learning about all of the components of conscious discipline. It umbrellas a lot of theories and strategies. It's built on brain research. It teaches adults to manage their own emotional state first. So that idea that we have to be regulated if we're going to support a child to regulate. And then we can model healthy conflict resolution and teach the missing social and emotional skill. The idea is that we're moving from punishment to problem solving. So it shifts the focus from either punishing bad or rewarding good behavior to teaching the skill that the child's missing to navigate those social scenarios. And it's built on the core principles of safety, connection, and belonging. So this is the brain states model. So this is the idea that for all human beings, we have 3 states: the survival state, which is ask the question, am I safe? The connection, am I loved? And then the problem solving, what can I learn from this? Young children are in our building. We spend a lot of time in the first 2. So supporting our staff to get children to the problem solving, and then we teach and that's where we teach new skills. The other big piece with conscious discipline is creating a school family, a culture of safety and connection for both children and adults and families. And then in each of those brain states, there's strategies that teachers and parents can use. So what do we do when a child's in a survival state? What do we do when they're in an emotional state? And then how do we teach them in the problem solving state? So there's examples of connection rituals. These are playful little greetings where a teacher carves out 30 seconds a day to connect with a child and check in with them. The idea is we want them to feel seen and loved. The safe place is a designated classroom area to support co-regulation. So that's not time out or let's go take a break over here. It's let's come to this space and we have strategies within that space for the adult to teach them self-regulation skills. And then communication for both adults and children, clear expectations. I need you to do this, or we're doing this. And then empathy for the human experience for our children that arrive almost every day in the survival state. And then our second initiative was to get back to play-based learning. I have All Babies Are Born Creative. I don't know if you've heard of the NASA Creativity Project. This was a study done in the 1960s led by George Land, and it was aimed at finding creative researchers or creative engineers for the space program. And what they found, they administered these creativity, like creative thinking tests or creative aptitude tests. And what they found was 4 and 5-year-olds, 98% of them score at the genius level of these tests. And by adulthood, 2%. So he began asking these questions. What is happening between those 2 stages of life that's stifling creativity? And it suggests that somewhere between those 2 stages, something's happening that we're diminishing creativity, stifling creativity, and along that goes creative problem solving, perseverance, and interpersonal skills, which we know are critical for the future. We know that play is a way for children to practice and master skills at their own pace. So previously, before we were more play-based, our team spent a lot of time on figuring out what's developmentally appropriate practice, where are children, observing where children are. And what we learned is if we flip it and we make it child-led, initiated by the child, they tell us what they can do, and then our staff scaffold that to stretch them to the next level. Play supports whole child development across domains. You can see this little picture, they've got a tube and they're using it to talk to each other, and that was all initiated by them. But they're having really playful interactions. They're using their whole body to move. They're problem solving. So across all domains, and not just a targeted domain. And then mounting evidence shows that play lays the foundation for skills our students need to thrive in the 21st century workforce. So again, that idea that we have children in our building that will probably have careers or jobs that we can't even imagine at this point. But if we're fostering creativity, perseverance, problem solving, conflict resolution, how those skills will transfer and how they can take them with us when they leave us. So I was on that level. Yeah. So when I stepped into this role, I was a little bit naive. I thought this shift to play-based learning was going to be really easy, that the why was going to be the hardest part. What I learned was the how was the harder part. The why, teachers got it. We had some incredible veteran teachers that have been doing this a long time. They were setting their routines. And that shift, that change to support adults to think differently and do something differently, turns out can be challenging. So we started with really looking, I was like, okay, we're gonna start small. We're not gonna overwhelm teachers. So we started small and started just asking why questions. Like, why do the dump trucks, why can they only be played with in the sandbox? And I was like, why is that? Tell me about this. And it was like, well, because they'll run into other kids and or they'll run into teachers' legs. And I was like, oh, okay. and don't get me wrong, we have 2,200 regulations that we have to meet for our Head Start funding. But I was like, well, let me check and see. Well, it turns out that's not a regulation. So let's just give it a try and see what happens. And the opposite happened, right? What we found them doing was they were having these conversations, they were organizing their play. You can see this little girl on the ramp. They figured out there's an up way and there's a down way. And so they organized all of that and they started including kiddos that didn't get opportunities to play otherwise. And so it's turned out great. It's become like our tagline, we free the dump trucks, and let's rethink a lot of the adult directed rules. Is it a rule because we're uncomfortable with it as an adult, or is there really a safety issue? So just kind of having some of those questions. Let's see here, what else did we want to say? And that idea of kind of coming back to creativity. Were some of these rules stifling creativity? And then we were just giving adult directive, and we'd see negative behaviors increase.
Just want to say, leave it to my child to just chill in the dump.
Totally, she's still in the sandbox. And then the other piece that we really talked to was letting go of school readiness. In school readiness, kindergarten readiness, we know what the purpose is of that, but it's become a buzzword for funders, which is okay. I write a lot of grants and I use the term all the time. Well, sometimes what teachers hear is that in order for them to be kindergarten ready, in order for them to head over to Corey and his team, they need to know what they should in kindergarten. So it was like, let's let the kindergarten team do that. And our job is to teach them what they need to know as a 3-year-old, as a 4-year-old, as a 5-year-old. And then if we do our job there, the kindergarten team picks up. So that idea that like if they can sit in a classroom and respond to their teacher appropriately, if they can get their coat and shoes and hats on by themselves, Corey's team can teach them to read. So it's like that idea. So we really like letting go of some of those words that can elicit the push down effect. And then we had to teach teachers how to guide play-based classrooms, because it was like, well, if we're just going to let them play, then I guess you don't need me, or I guess I don't know what to do. And it's this, I love this example. So in this example, what can you do to build a taller tower with the blocks? That's guiding play. We're not giving them a directive. And then versus instruction. Instruction would be build a wider base to make your tower taller. So it's just those subtle shifts in our teacher's language. And once they started practicing and getting comfortable with that, we've really seen them flourish.
You teach them how to do a pre-trip.
Yes. Yes. Okay. Free the buses. They do love the bus. They do love the bus. We take one field trip in the spring, the kindergarten bound over to the elementary, and it is a big. We just drive around on the bus. But kind of coming back to this idea of supporting adults to think a little differently, to implement new practices, to get out of their comfort zone. We kind of I came back to this idea, and I was reflecting a lot. I got sort of met with some resistance. So reflected on my practice and how do I support teachers to feel the same as we want children to feel in our buildings. It's like that idea that the need for connection never goes away. And so I've really focused our system on, or my team has really focused our system on making sure that adults feel that same safety, connection, belonging, so that we can create brave spaces to try something new, to do something differently. So we created collaborative time focused on skill building. Our teachers didn't have planning time. They didn't have PLC time. So we carved it out and made it a part of our master schedule so that they can count on that. They know they get it. We have an incredible instructional coach in our building who runs those PLCs and can really teach these skills. And then we can provide feedback and ongoing support through our coaching, our evaluation system, and our mentoring system. A goal was to create meaningful professional development. So we said, here's the goals. We're keeping them simple. Here's how you do it. And now our professional development is going to align with that. We're going to teach you how to do it, and we're going to support you in doing it. So we did a staff survey at the end of last year, and this was one of the items. And 96% of our staff reported what they learned during our professional development time has changed their classroom practices. So we felt pretty good about that metric. This is our child outcomes data. When we think about data in early childhood, it's all tied to funding, it's all tied to age, and they grow so rapidly. So this is an area, our data I would like to get better at, because it's really hard to tease it apart, because a child that comes through our door as a 1-year-old in the fall it's comparing apples to oranges by the time it's May, or even our kindergarten bound kids. But what we see here is this is data. So this is our 24-25 data. We've pulled out our IEP kiddos. We did have a high percentage that moved on to kindergarten this year. So these are our UPK children, our Head Start children, our district staff tuition children. And these are those children that came through our door as 2019, 2020 babies. So we see some pretty incredible growth in how they were performing in the fall versus how they were performing in the spring. So up next this year, one of my messages to teachers and to our team has been, we were not changing a whole bunch more. We're not drastically, this wasn't an initiative that's going to go away. We're going to stick with this. This is research backed and how children learn best. We're just going to dive deeper into our practice, and we're going to get better at it. So up next this year, we're really focusing on teaming. So that's our classrooms are structured with a lead teacher, a teaching assistant, and a paraprofessional. And not all of our teachers are, when I went through teacher school, didn't learn how to work with adults or how to lead a team, how to communicate, how to have difficult conversations, how to learn where to give grace and where to be assertive. So we're really working on strengthening those sort of micro classroom teams. Again, the data and impact, I want to get better at how do you look at early childhood data and how do you tease it apart and make the comparisons be valid, and mapping our preschool standards to play. So when children leave our building, what do they need to know and how do we teach it through play? Family education, we will be sharing with families conscious discipline. We have our first family education night coming up on the 29th of this month, as well as the power of play, because a lot of our strategies that teachers are using in the classrooms can be duplicated in the home and can be really powerful for families. And then building capacity to better serve our bilingual and multilingual children and families. Our team has made incredible strides. We put together last year a committee that really looked at what are we doing and how do we do this better. We have a couple of staff that are native Spanish speakers who are really passionate about connecting with that population. And when we talk about development and development of language and literacy, a child that's learning 2 languages, 3 languages, what does that look like, and what's the research on that? So getting better at that way. And this is, you might recognize, this is the Longfellow Garden having snack. This is my 2020 baby Huck, and he's loving kindergarten. And we started out this year with just an opportunity to sit together and to redefine our vision and mission to better reflect our current practices. So this is what we came up with.
Is that everything?
Yeah, that's it.
Okay,
Questions or yeah?
that was very report. Questions, comments?
I just have a question on enrollment data. Like, we have the chart from David that has all of the schools by PCC on there. We saw a little bit of a dip at Longfellow with enrollment this year. So I'm wondering if we're seeing a dip in ECC or if you guys are still busting at the seams.
Yeah, we're full at ECC and running a wait list. Our toddler program is particularly full with a large wait list. And that includes income qualifying families. But yes,
Meaning
we're
there's income qualifying families who still can't get in.
yeah, absolutely. We see it gets a little bit trickier with UPK as 4-year-olds because there are 10 providers in our county. I don't know exactly how many are in Salida, but 10 in our county who are taking universal preschool. It's a little bit more, I don't want to say competitive, but like we had to kind of look a little bit more for those 4-year-olds, offer the community-based tuition increase. But no, our enrollment is still full, and maybe pulling some of those like toddler waitlist numbers to see kind of where we're at or how does it compare to previous years. We can do that.
And do you see any change in the demographics? Like I know at one point there was some thought of like, are we gonna lose Head Start kids and we're still having high numbers?
We still are having high numbers. The Office of Head Start has allowed a little bit more flexibility in qualifications. For example, they if a family qualifies for SNAP, the Nutrition Assistance Program, then they automatically qualify for Head Start. So they broadened a couple of those categories. It's still the same population, but made it a little bit easier for families to qualify.
And then Teresa, to dig a little deeper on that idea, I know the last couple of years, Salida School District families were having a difficult time qualifying for Head Start's parameters. They made too much money, but it was expensive. But did that help by saying you don't snap it all?
Yes, yeah, that did help us qualify more Head Start and Early Head Start. We do they broadened the, it did help.
Okay.
There's still that population that's just over, that we know
So
it's still.
not
developing
quite right,
here.
but we're moving closer to better.
Mhm.
And how many out-of-district students do we bring in?
Yeah, I did pull those numbers for you, Jody. I'm sorry not to touch on
No,
that.
that's okay. You didn't have your computer.
Mhm. So we, let's see here, we are currently serving 8 out-of-district children, and 4 of them are staff members' children.
Okay.
Yeah, and none of them are IEP. 3 of them are home-based in Buena Vista, and that's a Head Start regulation. We have to serve the whole county, and since the Head Start, since Buena Vista doesn't have a Head Start program, we have to serve those families. So then, but then what we do is just facilitate transition into the Grove, if that works for the family.
If
Buena Vista School District or any preschool in Buena Vista. Yeah.
And then are there any children of staff on the waiting list?
No. I said that. No. Yeah. We always sort of, it's like to call it a staff benefit and to say for sure that a staff member gets in, it's challenging because we are capped with our ratios.
Right.
So we have to be just transparent about that. But we're typically able to make it work and get them in.
And then I have one comment and then one question. I have been able to see every principal move into a building and exert executive leadership. And it's been really fascinating to watch and how valuable a principal is. And you took such a difficult thing, like that darn SPED teacher, right? Credentialed SPED teacher, and all of those COVID cohort babies, and the challenges and the burnout that the staff had. And you distilled it down and you did three things: that the paying credentialed teachers and credential pay, as if somebody was in first or second grade, then the conscious discipline and the play. And we're in our second year now, and it's fascinating to see it happen, and it's magic. So thank you for doing that, and it's fascinating to watch it happen at the other buildings too. And then change is hard, right? So how are the adults doing with that change now?
I think overall, we had the fewest openings at the Early Childhood Center this year than we've had in my 16 years. Now, part of that is that data is skewed, right? Because sometimes we rapidly expanded, so we had to. So there's no like hard. Yep. But I didn't spend all summer trying to hire. We had one teacher that she was like, I don't know, like I don't know about that. I don't know how this feels for me. And she applied and moved over to Corey's team, and it was like, that's great. We still see her as a part of our team. Like that's okay. If being an early childhood teacher is not for everyone. But just like being a middle school teacher or a high school teacher. So that's okay too, like helping support staff to find their pathways and just really what brings them joy and what makes them love their jobs is kind of what it boils down to.
Okay, thank you.
So like shifting to that certified pay schedule, you're not necessarily losing people because of pay anymore, or not as frequent.
No, I mean it's a little bit tricky. We have the most classified staff with those additional support staff. I mean, and sometimes it's just like, I just have to like, I got to do something else to make a little bit more money. But it's never like, oh, this job is terrible or whatever. No, but I think, yes. So it helps us retain, solid teachers in each of our classrooms that can stay, and consistency in that way. And if they're leading those micro teams, and then we have, we revamped our new teacher for our new staff training. So for example, we just brought on a para last week. We had another one that decided she wants to go be a ski instructor or something. But anyways, and so we brought on a new para, and we have this like whole map, this whole timeline of supporting her in her role. And so, and it's all consistent because the lead teacher is still the same. So just kind of mapping it out in that way. So I would say yes, less turnover for sure.
Any questions? Thank you. It's always great to get these reports. We'll shift into district report. Dr. Blackburn, I think that's you.
I'm gonna let Aaron go first, and then Savannah, and then I'll pick up from there. Okay. Just on student growth. Yeah, you can go on October count.
Yeah.
Okay.
I was like, what?
I don't think you got me in the right place. No, I mean I can talk about October count real quick. That's the biggest topic right now from October because that's what dictates all of your funding. Not all of it, but about 90% of it. And we haven't seen a decline in a long time. I think this year we're looking at potentially seeing a small decline in our student population. Looks like we're down about 10 kids right now. So basically there's a day this month where they're going to take our October count. That's what they fund us off of. So it's kind of a weird way of summing up all that we do on one day, but that's how the state does it. So it's a bigger conversation along the state because there's a lot of declining enrollment across the state public schools. So seeing us go down a little bit deviates from what we initially thought with the demographers report. There was a lot of homes that were not built in the last year that are getting ready to go online, so I wouldn't be surprised if we see that go back up in the next year or so, but we're redoing our demographers report now to see what that might look like and how many students that might move into the area. But it's going to impact funding a little bit this year, so I'll try to keep you updated as we go. I mean, for context, that could be like $100,000 roughly for 10 kids, because you can think roughly $10,000 to $11,000 a kid this year. So it can impact things, but it's not enough for us to change our budget currently. I'll bring the amended budget in the next month or two, but it's not impacting any of our plans big time at this point. But it's definitely a trend that we want to make sure we're watching, because there's a lot of schools right now that are really stressed about this. So not something we need to be stressed about. We do have collapsible systems, like we've talked about many times in board meetings, but right now we're still pretty convinced that we're going to be able to, with the increased formula funding, we're still going to see a lot of increased funding this year overall. So it's a decrease of the expected increase. But it's still pretty complicated overall. But it is a big impact, and it's our number one.
Is your 10 student would be averaging stuff, or is that this year and then it'll be reduced further?
Yeah, so no, it'll be, I mean, it averages out over, I think it's 3 years right now. The problem is they're looking at a smoothing formula for that, so it's a little bit changing constantly. So they're trying to figure out how to do that to put in the new formula over a certain amount of years and change the averaging. So we're down like 10 this year. So I think it's the exact numbers 11 FTE this year. But that's not with the averaging. So once they average, it'll be a smaller number than that. So
It's 14 students, 11.5 FTE,
Yeah.
two different numbers, and then the 11.5 FTE gets averaged in a to be determined way. They stay with the way it's written or they adjust it. Aaron and I will come back with the amended budget for first up next month in the audit, which is perfect.
And the next run comes out from the state, which is the more official run next month. So that's when hopefully by the next board meeting, we'll have a really good picture of our actual funding from the state.
Well, and if you guys, I mean, I know you kind of mentioned in the email, have you had a chance at all to dig into those numbers and see if it's immigrant children, if it's homeschooling, if it's, like what we think
Yeah, I
is-
mean, it's really interesting because there's a couple buildings that are down in enrollment, and so like LES is down in enrollment total. And one of the big reasons for that is the 4th grade class that just left LES was a pretty big class, and the incoming kindergarten class only has 75 kids. So there's some pieces there. I mean, there's as we've dug into it, it's pretty regular that sometimes for the kindergarten year, families will homeschool and things like that, and you may see them cut back in future grades. So that's not overly concerning, but what's interesting is if you take the report and you look year to year, so last year's kindergarten class versus this year's 1st grade class, those cohorts all stayed roughly the same across the board up until high school. And so actually, we talked a little bit about this with Jesse. There's a bit more of a dip off in kids who've left between 9th grade and 10th grade, 10th grade and 11th, and up to 12. All 3 of those classes have decreased in size. And there's a number of factors for that, because there's kids leaving, there's kids coming in. There was quite a few that transitioned to online, but not necessarily more than normal as far as what we could tell when we talked. So we're still trying to kind of figure out exactly where they went. And Jim has really good data that most of them we can track to a specific school district or what they're doing right now. So we're still trying to dive into that a little bit more. The initial, it's what you said, Matt, about the immigrant families. It doesn't seem like it's necessarily that impacted in our district based upon the kids that left that we dug into, but it's hard to say exactly. So we're gonna keep digging.
Okay, the next month we'll really dig into that, whether it's the homeschool or other districts or those various things. We're looking at Montessori's impacting us as we're looking at the new building.
When is their new building?
It's set to open up for next semester, so January 1, effectively.
And then are they increasing enrollment January?
They did best grants. Best grants don't let you design for that increase, so it's not expected. But we're going to see how reality plays out versus design promises and all that other stuff, right?
It's worth noting that we have a gentleman's handshake, because philosophically, they don't expand past 160, right? As a philosophy, and we supported them for the first time to get the best grant. That was at that, we were Longfellow on stage.
Yeah, that was
And
like
then,
3 years ago.
David, I think that, I just need some,
Some math. 10 years.
well, 170, I can't manage time anymore. David, can you teach, or Aaron, I don't know who it is, the how, or maybe even the principles, because you add new students at each school, but it takes a while to see where, the attendance secretaries at the schools are drowning, right? And then you pull out the kids who, how does it work?
I can talk about it a little bit.
Yeah.
I mean, I would say Dave will say the same thing. Jim Sampson has really impacted ease that we're able to do that and the ability that we have to get really accurate numbers quickly. So, I mean, because we've gone everything's digital and we've put everything through Infinite Campus, he's able to really clean up the system throughout the summer. And typically the secretaries come in and it's constantly changing throughout September. Every week, Jen brings a new report. And yeah, I mean, the first week you might be up 20 kids and you're down 5 and you're up 7 and then you figure out where you're at on the day that they actually count. So, but I think largely Jim has cleaned that up to where we have a pretty good estimate by the end of September every year.
Okay, so that's kind of where we are. It's really,
Yeah,
the
I mean, this
fluctuations
is-
that slow.
Yes.
You're not gonna see much of a change in what it is. The harder part is it's a request for records. So when you go to the next school, let's say you went up the road to BV or down the road to Paxi, BV would have to then file a request for records, and that triggers that the account goes towards their of ours.
And that table you have.
So, yeah, but if you get some of these large district onlines where they're kind of going around the state and kind of trying to skim off kids, some of the Colorado Springs districts, it's extremely unethical, but it's the way the system is, so whatever. So as they pull those, they may not put those record requests in with the same kind of fidelity that they do like a district like BV or ours or a district like that. So that can cause it difficult. On top of that, the online homeschool situation has changed over the last few years because when somebody leaves, are they an online school at home or are they a homeschool that's also accessing some sort of online curriculum but not really in the school? And it gets these muddy waters. But the nice part is we're talking about trying to chase down a handful of stories, and normally our staff know the families and can say, this is what's happening. They have a good hint of why the family made a choice and can look at those things. So.
Yeah, I mean, the two big points were the kindergarten class was smaller, and that's fairly expected. Being able to call Corey and talk about that, and just, and also working with Jim and saying this was kind of expected. But then, I mean, when we started doing the trends, I called Jesse, and we were able to go through almost every kid and be like, yeah, this one makes sense. This one makes sense. Whereas that doesn't. Yeah, we're able to track down pretty much every one of those lost kids and figure out what happened. So.
It'll be one of those things where some of the stories we might make a phone call and just see if there's a relationship wrong with the family. In most cases, it's not the issue. The family's made a different choice, and we'll let families do that. Principals, you guys want to add anything? It was pretty thorough.
The only other question I have is, do you have a rough estimate for out-of-district students?
Not yet. I'll get that to you next month.
Okay.
Yeah. On that note, I think the other piece I did put it in the board report at one point is, so you had a small dip in overall enrollment, but you had an increase in special ed students, right? And then we didn't plan for what we saw, so our plan isn't holding as well as we would hope, right? And the students, we have more of them, they're more intense than what we had expected. So that breaks your system resources. I think that's been a big struggle here in the buildings.
And is it across buildings?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. So there's enough stories there. There's some intense, kiddos, take a lot of time, a lot of man hours, and you also staff burn out because you can't do that kind of intensity nonstop. So it stretches everybody. And the hard part, academics always say, like, normally you can sit down and you can correct an academic need pretty fast. Behaviors are 6 months, years. It takes years to correct behavioral issues if they can be corrected. And so you're talking about sitting in that storyline day after day after day, year after year. And those are really hard positions to be in, so they take a lot of resources. Teaching somebody to decode is much easier than teaching somebody to regulate. For whatever reason, they may struggle with that.
So Aaron, I heard you say you feel you'll get the state numbers and all the things, but like here was our hope. We're here now, but it's still more than where we were because the state's probably funding more. Plus, if there's declining throughout the state, the per pupil fund will go up. It's just how long it takes for the rest to settle.
Yeah, I mean, we're receiving more money than last year by quite a bit because of the new formula rolling out, and it's rolling out in a time frame. So it's going to be, it's nowhere near the amount that we're receiving. Like the decrease that we might see from these few kids is not near the amount that we saw in the increase. So the plan's holding there. And I mean, as long as you don't continue to see a decline in student enrollment and a substantial decline, they're supposed to roll out the formula more every single year. So we're going to continue to see increased revenues as long as we don't see a huge tank in student count.
I think the next, this run that you talked about, which gives us all the data on the numbers, that'll be important coming out soon. And then the assessed valuation, it's a really important number coming out next. We're tracking because if the overall average assessed values of homes goes down, then it pushes more of the burden onto the state budget and off of the locals. And if you press it onto the state budget, that budget's not working well, to say the least. So that right there is going to cause some storylines that we have to track. We do expect the overall assessed valuation to go down. That'd be the prediction in the state, but you gotta wait and see. It's a big number.
When does that come
I don't remember. I'm hoping by November when the auditor's here, so let's have all the data. I think the key thing is Aaron and I are still thinking there's, you guys' kind of number one goal is teacher pay and taking another chunk out of that and keep on going. So I still think we can make that happen. The other things I've been working on, and I'll let you go, Savannah, as you see, it's a big board with lots and lots of numbers. It's just digging into capital projects and all of our operations. Trying to figure out and make sure those plans are going to be as accurate as possible so that when we can come back and make commitments to here's how much money we have. We've thought through all the other details from tilt skillets to lighting. So those RFPs we pull off, the lawyers so we don't have to you approve the RFPs. So we'll put those out. Some of those RFPs are going to be around the lighting system, right? And that came quicker than even predicted because you cannot buy the lights in Colorado. So now our entire lighting system has to be changed. And we're looking hard at that. How do we recycle it? Can we put it like, can we take all the fixtures out of the high school, store them for a year, put it into Longfellow, the bulbs and everything else, but then you're storing you're storing mercury and some stuff. It's not necessarily liability wise something we want to be storing. So we're trying to look at those. What is the consequences of that? The building automation systems. We're trying to come up with new ideas, and rather than just say, okay, let's pull it all out and replace it all. What are other ideas? Can we reprogram these things? Can we scavenge this to keep that building? Like, how can we cheapen those things? On the same thing, the energy grid is really becoming one of our central conversations in LFTU. We're looking again at the electric bus. If some of those grants items can help us with infrastructure, then that could help us create some of our own microgrids as we're going to see electricity become the issue, I think, over the next 5 years as we look at technology. And we are at the end of the line technologically. So we're trying to design as many systems, find partners to get some of that stuff out. I bring it up because at SMS bedroom, right now basically quadrupled from the original quote, and that was because of our electrical system. It's our oldest building. So can we find grants for doing something on the side that helps us with that electrical system so we can invest in that? There's a lot of different things, but that electrical is where we're spending a lot of energy to try and figure it out. Just from the safety, because remember, every door access, everything runs on technology now. So when your power goes out, it's not just the inconvenience of not having lights. And Michelle has to have dark bathrooms with middle schoolers, which is fascinating. But like everything kind of happens because you don't have all the solutions in place. So that's a big question we're working on as well as some other. Just trying to make sure that when we get to January, we've got the amended budget, we've got as much research as possible to say, here's how much money we can put towards teacher pay. So we're trying to resolve any issue as early as possible.
The only other thing I add, and I know I put it in the board report, but I'm also fully aware that my board report is not the most fun to read out of everybody's board report. I'm sure everyone else
Don't say that.
It's pretty exciting, but no, I mean, just to give you confidence, like our revenues last year at this time were 12% of our budget, they're 12% this year. Our expenditures last year at this time were 20%, they're 20% this year. So we're tracking right where I would expect us to be, and I feel really confident that we're in a good spot. Just for whatever that's
Okay. Anything else in finances or student growth data, October count questions that you want Aaron and I to jump into? Next month is a lot of Aaron. You got the auditor here and we'll start looking at the budget.
Yeah, everybody come back. It's going to be a great time.
Honestly, the most exciting thing ever.
You're upstairs.
My job is more exciting. So, I'm just gonna try to summarize this novel that I wrote this month, and share some things, and you guys can ask me questions, as they arise. I think we've had a lot of success stories going into all of the buildings. I've gotten to go to the elementary school. I think I'm almost done with all of my get to know you interviews. I have a couple on my list that I've got to email, but I'm sending out the middle school interviews tomorrow just to get to know people. In my first board report, it was like explaining exactly what that meant. Like, we're going over licensing, we're going over PD. I'm getting to know them as individuals, not only as teachers. And so I get to start the middle school ones this week, which is great. English, as you remember, I was talking about possibly adopting curriculum at the high school English level. We found an open source curriculum that almost hits all the standards and is something that our teachers are interested in at the high school. And they're happy with it, and so we are not doing that anymore. We are going to go to the open source curriculum and really focus on the what and aligning assessments and things like that. Professional development, I got to run at the high school for their MTSS groups, which was really exciting. We got to work on engagement, and so that led into like SEL and trust, and then some rigorous task work. So that was fun, and I think we got some pretty good feedback on that. All celebrations. And then as far as the curriculum adoption moving out of English, we're talking about the curriculum adoption moving into math at both the high school and middle school levels. So we are pulling sources right now. We are getting samples. We're creating a vetting process. You guys can expect to see some curriculum by March for approval. So that's good, and I think teachers are really excited about looking at all the different resources that are out there now. So I have some pretty good buy-in in the middle school and high school. Team leads. Thank you for the money for team leads, because this is very exciting to me. Just hearing Teresa talking about like all of the change that she's implemented, and then seeing coaching on the board, I was like, so that's exciting to me that we have an opportunity to do this with our staff, not only to better our students and our practices, but to build teacher morale and to help us have that belonging in where we want to be. So that is really exciting, and I can have a timeline at the end of my report around when you could see a draft for that, and what it could possibly look like. Let's see. Thank you for the time with teachers as well, because I've gotten to be out and about, minus my Atlas work. So that has been a lot of fun, and I am really enjoying getting to know everyone. Dates. We are editing Atlas right now. So this next month in November, we're really just like, I have all of the curriculum in for the most part. I think actually I can say all of it as of this morning. And so we're just diving into what that looks like. Obviously, when you have a bunch of curriculum in there, you're going to see one unit that you're like, oh, these essential questions don't match with the learning objectives and don't match with the standards. And so we need to go in there and edit those things. But in one of my courses in science in the middle school, we have some fairly new teachers in there. And they've adopted curriculum recently. And so all of their stuff is in there, and we get to work on like assessments and aligning those all the way throughout, and how do you know kids are learning things, what are our priorities, our high leverage moves. So yeah, that's kind of where we're at in a summary of 9 pages.
Can we, so you talked about the middle school math curriculum being in 2014 with the new state standards in 2020, which was like a little shocking. But do we have any other subjects that are that out of alignment right now, or is that the dramatic one?
I don't think so. I thought middle school English was, but I think they're right on the cusp. But you can, was it 2019?
That we adopted my perspectives?
Mm-hmm.
No, that was
22. So I think that was my other concern, was the English. Yeah, and high school English, obviously, but they've got a really, I mean, I put that in my board report too, as far as what Atlas looks like, and they've got a really good foundation in there for an open resource program.
So I was asking all the teachers know, what does open source?
Open source means it's free.
That's what I thought.
Yeah.
I just want to make sure that that's what.
Yeah.
It's the best word.
And they have a paid one that you can get too, but I mean, for right now, like getting to know our what is really important, and I think there's plenty of resources there for us to work from right now, and then into something that we can purchase if that's where we need to go. Yeah.
So Savannah, I'm curious, maybe this was covered before, it's called guaranteed viable curriculum?
Yes. Mm-hmm.
What's guaranteed about it? Like what does
Yeah.
that mean?
The guarantee part.
The guaranteed part.
The guaranteed part is, to me, it's like the making sure that everybody has the same curriculum in any class, regardless of the teacher. So they have access to that same rigor as they would in your class, as they would my class. And yes, we have our own personal styles, and we might do supplementary things that may be different, but they have access to the same, potential as next year, like aligning them to get ready for the following year.
That makes way more sense than what I was thinking.
CBC.
I was thinking, oh, guaranteed successful. How perfect is that? And then what's the temperature like as far as, is everybody excited about this? Are they open and, are you?
Yeah, I mean, I think.
I know, that's a very general,
If you gave this to everyone and they were like, they said nothing, I don't think we'd have any engagement. So I think there's good questions. I think there's people, that are willing to have conversations and go to the hard places, so.
Okay, so there's engagement.
I'm enjoying it because I've got that bigger, longer perspective. I'm seeing staff engage this conversation at a much higher level, much more depth. Which means they have some capacity for that to do that space. So hopefully through the work, it actually increases capacity. So now we go in lots of places all the time.
And I know it's still very late, but.
Yeah.
Thank you.
This is going wrong, I think, yeah.
As long as I've been on the board, we've trusted the recommendation of the curriculum adoption committee, which is staff.
Mm-hmm.
And if you just said something about science, I know Kate here, Madden, really was the leader of that last year, 2 years ago, whenever.
For the high school or the?
No, the science curriculum,
Amplified?
yeah.
Uh-huh.
And you just said it's working.
I don't know if that's the same one. Is it?
It is the same one.
Amplified?
Darcy actually led that one.
Beg your pardon?
Darcy was here and led that curriculum adoption. It's what we're using.
Right.
The one we're using right now.
Right, this,
Yeah.
but, yes.
But I think it's.
But Darcy was
important
great, and Kate was, they were passionate about it. And what you just said is it's aligning.
Yeah, it's
It's
aligning,
working. Awesome.
and I mean, if you think about a new teacher coming into a building and having to learn all of the things that are teaching, and they already have the what in front of them, like they already are given the curriculum and it's guaranteed and it's there and they can see where it goes and where, they're supposed to get kids to. That's the what, and they can focus on the how, because that is really hard as a new teacher.
And
So-
and it's working out with the scope and sequence from Longfellow and then up to the high school. So far,
That's
so
a good
good.
question. I mean,
Yeah, I mean,
That's unfair for me to ask. You cannot.
we have
know
a
that.
different curriculum.
you're always unfair to me, Jody. No, I think the way I see it, having been in the district a long time, is, there's the data collection is kind of the phase that Savannah's been in. Savannah, correct me if I'm wrong. The data collection, getting it all together, getting it housed into one place, and then the next step is kind of doing that work, and you're able to have a more educated conversation about these kinds of things. Does this align? How does that work?
So we
What are
can't answer
these?
that yet.
Yeah, we're getting closer and closer. And elementary is a little different, just because of READ Act and because a lot of our curriculum, especially when it comes to literacy and math, are resource based, and it kind of has been that way for a long time. Whereas you go up into the higher grades, it's just different. What does English 1 mean at a high school level? And so really that's kind of the big focus now.
Okay, well, that helps me understand.
Yeah.
That's what I long for.
All right.
Not gonna go easy on you.
All right, I don't expect you to.
Okay, so the only things I would just mention is we are getting a lot of audits, just so you know, so we have a 3-year enrollment audit. So that means is every 3 years, they go back and say, you claim there's 100 students to go here, so they give you all the money and whatever you claimed, and then 3 years later, they come back and review all those numbers. So that was all COVID. So the audit book, just on that audit that's come in, is 6 times longer than the last time we did it. So you're talking about a very different perspective that has showed up from the Department of Ed, where every penny is being thoroughly investigated. There are no freebies. It'll change. And so we will see how that goes. But we've had that. We did get our ESSER enrollment, which is the last of those COVID dollars, 100% done. So that's a big success. We've had behavior audits, suspension restraint audits. We just had an ELL audit. We paid for a separate consultant to come in because we know that we need to look deeper at our programming for language acquisition. And so we brought an expert in to kind of give us a findings. So this next year we can say, here's the program we need as we're trying to address that. So we know it's a growth area, but we needed someone to come in and say, here's that. So we expect some recommendations by the end of the semester from that audit. HEA had to do an audit. It's got its own thing. I just mentioned that because just like one of those audits 6 times more in depth, that's what everything is coming from every angle of the Department of Ed right now. On the same side, that's our State Department of Ed. I know there's a lot of news around the federal layoffs at the federal Department of Education. I just want to make sure I sent you guys an email today from the commissioner. I get those pretty regularly. Again, there's 0 negative consequences to date that have happened to us from those layoffs. This layoffs hit the special education side of the piece pretty hard, but we also are getting all the funding. All of our Head Start money has come in. All of our IDEA has come in. So all that money is still flowing to us. We haven't seen any of those drawdowns not be actualized. So it's just always an interesting thing to hear one thing on the news and see something else in your checkbook.
Right, I'm checking on that funding just because I'm a contractor and have 3 active duty military children. And so far, how I'm understanding it is, military soldiers military can be paid because there's money left over from last fiscal year. Head Start can be paid because there's money left over from last fiscal year. Just from what I have been reading, do we have any sense of when SPED money, free reduced money, or Head Start money?
There's no prediction right now. Everything flows because the people who would actually cut those checks, for example, they're considered essential workers. So those workers are still there processing like our drawdown requests. So that money, that's what I'm saying. The money is still flowing. I'm not going to pretend to understand everything going on in the federal government or make any predictions on when they might come to an agreement and turn the engine back on.
Later. So we just don't know.
What I heard, it's a little bit of a different context than, maybe education. But, social services is basically said there's like a 90-day window. So there's enough, the funding slowly trickles down, and at 90 days, it kind of falls.
It's over. Okay, so there's some time.
But for right now, so I wanted to make sure you guys were just aware and order. Just keep betting with Aaron and I on all those financial things, right? Because if you said somebody promised $100 and they end up paying you $80, you're going to hear in the news that there was a massive cut, right? Because you only got 80% of the $100 you were promised. That's a different thing than a cut in revenue or cut in expenses. You've also got to track a cut in promises right now. And so we'll keep on tracking all that stuff. We'll do a report next month, and right, everything will work out, and we'll all sing Kumbaya, and it'll all be perfect in the next 30 days. When we come back, it will be easy and no big deal. Be positive.
I like your options.
Thanks.
Is that all you have?
That's, yeah, unless you guys want to jump into anything else on technology or anything other thing.
I have a few. Sure.
Well, which one, where are we?
We're just in the district report.
District report.
Right, so have we transitioned to mental health?
I didn't put much into that. I meant to. The mental health teams, that's your counselors, your psychologists. We do have a DHS liaison that's just hired. So that would be transitioning in that space. And please be aware, I meet with like Monica Haskell from the Department of Ed. We meet at least once a month, pretty regularly. CCYA, you'll hear one of those acronyms, Chaffey County Youth Alliance. We're all there trying to help that county-wide perspective, setting priorities. And I'm proud, like when we were there, it was yesterday morning. I lost track of time. Setting priorities, your Salida Schools was very, very well represented because if that's where money's at, we're going to be there. And we were really the only ones there, but we're excited. And just our priorities from Jesse and I, we really want to see some help working on some preventative driving programs. We've had 2 rollover accidents that have indirectly affected our kids or directly affected our kids. We know we've got
Safe
stuff.
spaces for kids at night.
Trying to make sure there's more activities for kids, so that's what we're pushing on that mental health piece. We've also asked the counseling team to help us set some recommendations around what is the best way to connect to kids who might be at risk for making bad choices, either hurt themselves or others. It's a hard thing. We don't want to advertise all the suicide screenings we do and all the threat screenings we do, or all the safe to tell things. It's a catch-22, and also they're working their tails off doing that stuff. So they want to come. We'll ask them to bring some recommendations on how to manage some of these things because I know the community has a strong interest. Also asking on the technology piece, like what are their recommendations for screen time philosophies as we try and navigate that. So I've asked them to kind of develop some of those things. But it is mental health awareness. Any other questions on that stuff? On the SEL side of the house?
What did you ask?
Our mental health team, which would be our counselors, psychologists, and some of our other Sol Vista, DHS, some of those other liaison agencies who will assist our kids in human development.
My things are all in the place. I got to experience part of the conversation about the board, and just so the board knows, there's debt-free MLO and CASB MLO conversations. So I let David know that I think it'd be worthwhile for the board to meet with CASB, at CASB, to meet with our investment bankers, if you will. I believe what Vista Vista is doing is technically called a debt-free MLO.
That is, and I'm going to learn more about it.
Yeah, so just an opportunity to talk more about MLOs and how we can potentially utilize them for various things, staff pay, like BD's is doing it for facilities improvements to allow more staff pay monies. It's and then obviously with everything else out there, there's some opportunities we need to discuss. Bonding capacity is on everybody. I think that conversation is going to be brought up on our end, but they'll want to talk to us about it. So I just encourage David to schedule some time in Calgary for the board to meet with the investment bankers to talk through that.
Real investment bankers.
I don't even know that.
That's what your bankers call it.
Okay, so yeah.
The people who do the analysis on what is your line of credit that you have available.
Right, okay, got it. Okay.
And the association came in to Aaron and I said, hey, we guys even consider that? I said, well, we're going to look into it. So we're going to start looking into it and understand. There was that.
MLO currently is maybe we're getting close to hitting it.
Well, MLO capacities have increased, which was huge. Meeting with Mike actually was a great meeting for us as well. They've increased a little bit with HB 1448 last year.
Okay,
so yeah, there's potential there for sure.
So we're going to explore what changes there is, what does that open up, and get you guys some facts. Again, trying to get all this, as much of the number crunching as we can before January, a couple months early, so that we're really ready to make any commitments again.
So, and then, we heard from John Fritz earlier with the ice rink. I encouraged him to show up to a meeting at some point to just talk through it because of his frustrations with doing that. I would tell David to proceed with working with them and possibly going back with an MOU by the next meeting because he explained it to me that pretty much minimal impact, if any, to what's going on in Holman, and they're just going to do it all. So it's like, yeah, we have some space. Have an ice rink for the winter and the long term is a different conversation.
So would it just be in the back where all that dirt is?
He thinks by between the parking lot and the hill for the soccer fields, there's enough space to make it level and do it.
I haven't seen a drawing, I'm meeting with him on Thursday.
Yeah, so there's a space between the parking lot fence and the soccer fields.
Little dog leg of grass that's unused.
Okay, yeah,
We actually already
dudes,
worked with
yes.
Garden
Is it
City.
where like the
We wanna
soccer-
extend our parking lot there.
Connexes?
It's attached to the garden.
Attached to the garden.
We've already worked with the garden
Okay,
to
well-
identify that spot to extend our parking lot, so maybe there's a benefit where they're helping us grade that so we can get a summer parking lot extension.
No promises, but I think it's worthwhile. I mean, it's gonna impact kids, it's gonna obviously impact communities.
The kids don't have to stay in Connexes during lightning.
Well, that's a longer term project. That's longer term.
I know.
I know you have a report later on, but we are working with every city and county trying to get someone to engage and work on recreational spaces.
It sounds like you just flood the real quick main rink and then they freeze it and then it's good. So seems like it's very
And we
feasible.
have the power.
Don't know.
That's a good question.
That was the first I heard of it.
They can find that out and as we work through this process, so.
We took that so right away. I'll do some investigation and come back next month with a perfect solution
So,
funded by our federal government.
there we go. And then the last thing, while I've got the principals here, like, I mean, we've heard of overwhelming success in the cell phone policy with students. How about staff? Like, are they abiding by the new rules? Are they adjusting to the no phones during the day type of thing? Just curious.
I don't have the same expectations for the staff because we use WebEx as like a safety thing. And so I keep my phone on me during the day. And I think it's an important.
Michelle, I can't hear you, I'm sorry.
Sorry, it's the ambient microphone. I said I don't have the same expectations for staff as I do for our kids. We invested in WebEx, which is a safety thing that I can text every single one of my staff members anytime that I need something. And so I think they need to have phones on them. I've never really seen staff be unprofessional with phones, and I would have a conversation with that. But I think it's important for us to have those conversations with kids too, that like there are rules for adults and there are rules for students, and you are students and they are the teachers. So I don't know if that answers your question, but I'm not making my staff put all of their phones away. I don't know if anybody else does.
I'm right there with you, Michelle. Obviously, if there's a teacher using their phone in an unprofessional manner, TikTok and we'll have a conversation. But they're adults and professionals. I trust them to use it as a tool as need be. I know my cell phone. I constantly have to be on it while I'm around the building. And I've had kids ask me, "Hey, Mr. Hall, you're on your cell phone." I'm like, "Yeah, I'm running the school. I need to be on my cell phone."
No, I think that's.
So far, so good.
Yeah.
This
Yeah,
is
yeah.
kind of the expectation. Kids talk and then parents ask. And
Yeah. And, I think the other piece at the high school, in the beginning of the year, we didn't confiscate many cell phones. I think the first couple of weeks we had like 10, right? But there's been a little bit of an uptick in confiscation of cell phones. And I think it's kids testing the boundary waters on whether we'll continue to enforce this consistently.
They're doing their job.
Yeah, and kids will be kids, I'll go into the bathroom at passing period and you'll see, right? They're testing the waters, but I can't tell you when you walk into a classroom and a teacher's teaching or they're in a classroom, people are not using them. So,
Corey, your concern at Longfellow was parents wanted to be able to have a device so that they could track their kids when they're young and biking home and stuff like that. Has it put parents at ease over there and it's working out, or?
It's always a balance. It's more so at the elementary level is the smartwatches. And so, anymore you can have a phone on the watch. And I also communicated with my staff, I don't want them feeling like they have to be going around checking at every watch to see if it's a smart watch. And so kind of our just litmus on that is the kid using it during the day? Are we seeing them on it? That kind of stuff. I've had a few conversations with parents on that kind of stuff. If they, if a parent shows up and says, "Oh, little Johnny's not feeling well," and Miss Tanner is not in the loop and is totally unaware, then there's a parent conversation that needs to happen there and that kind of stuff. Yeah.
Interesting.
Uh-huh.
Thank you.
I would actually say my nurse the other day said, I feel so much busier this year than I have any other year. And it's because kids can't get on their phone and tell their parents, pick me up, I'm sick right now. They actually have to go to the nurse and have that, which is great. Like, because half the time they can just probably go right back to class. Yeah.
That's actually amazing. Yeah, like I got a call this morning, they come and do trip money, from the school phone.
From the school phone.
So it's definitely being enforced at the middle school, I can verify.
Yes.
Y'all should be on the buses right after school.
Oh.
Like that. 500 phones.
It's been great for after school hanging out because we're like, can't be on your phone in here. Go.
Right, shoot.
Well, I will just add, it is interesting, and I've talked to a lot of kids, and again, kids specifically, thank you, like I said in senior seminar. They did bring up one other data point that a lot of kids have echoed is now they're going home, they're doing that doom scrolling with all it worse. So it's like there's not that small hit, so now they're getting on their phones and they're falling.
The heater on the bus is probably better.
For a couple hours in their bedroom, which isn't good for anyone's mental health. So we can't pick that up. But it was an interesting thing to have kids tell me that, and a couple of kids echo, yeah, I'm seeing the same thing in my own personal habits. Kids they have all said thank you.
Well, and I actually was at a webinar the other day with a couple of senior older students who are like really working hard on initiatives for managing social media and doing things. So they're making a whole little movie. So they're actually sending me a bunch of information because then I did a Zoom call with just them and sending like their information on school presentations and what they want to come and do something to the kids. So it would be kind of a next step of like addressing what you're talking about.
Now what?
Now what? Like we don't have them at school, but now how do we manage more outside of school? So, and they've done a lot with adding in like meditation and gratitude practices and they're like 20-year-old college kids. So I think maybe the message would be better received than from us.
Oh,
That sounds like a great advisory lesson.
Yeah. So as soon as he sends me all this stuff, I'll make messages.
Okay, we'll get you. Anything else, Joe?
That's all I got. Anything else? Okay, we'll take our customary 10-minute break and let everybody leave. If everyone wants to stick around for the rest of the night.
Mike's may still be on.
Mike's may still be on. Let's figure out how to shut them off.
It's the F4.